and welcome to Season 3, Episode 22 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host, Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in ECW history with match number 29 on our list, which is the tag team match between Sabu and Rob Van Dam against Doug Furnas and Dan Kroffat from the September 24th, 1996 edition of ECW Hardcore TV. So recently we had talked about the feud between Sabu and RVD throughout the spring and summer of 1996. Post the stretcher match that they had at the Doctor Is In that saw Sabu win their feud, the two came together basically as dream partners, nightmare partners, whatever you want to call them, for this All Japan versus ECW dream match at an ECW arena show called When Worlds Collide in 1996. That event was never shown in full in any way. It didn't make a commercial tape, so we only got to see this on Hardcore TV. This match is something that I think really gets the old ECW charm on it, because if you took this match and you put this match in today's era or really anywhere outside of ECW, I probably wouldn't like it. It is very, very disjointed. It's really just a lot of moves. There's no structure. There's no tag format whatsoever for the last half of the match. It has a lot of things that I feel would irk me. So, you know, there's a clear bias here, but it works in this ECW environment. And I think that's something that's kind of great about ECW, because it would take things that generally wouldn't work elsewhere, but just make it work in that vacuum that was Extreme Championship Wrestling. So if you don't know the Can-Ams, Doug Furnas and Dan Kroffat, you might have known them in the WWF as Doug Furnas and Phil LaFawn. They would, shortly after this match, make their WWF debuts in Madison Square Garden at Survivor Series 1996. They were a team that were around in All Japan Pro Wrestling. They would have a lot of success in this kind of mid-90s era. Wouldn't do so much after that. Doug Furnas was an incredibly strong wrestler. You might have remembered him from the late 80s, early 90s in the NWA and WCW. But really, these are two guys that, despite, you know, being a part of one of the best tag team matches of all time in All Japan, you know, I feel like they really kind of slip under the radar in a lot of ways. So at the time, right, ECW was trying to establish a working relationship with All Japan. They had Dr. Death Steve Williams come in August. They had Furnas and Kroffat come in September. There are rumors online, I don't know to what extent they're true, that talked about, you know, Heyman trying to bring in Misawa and Kawada and Kobashi and, you know, all of the big-time All Japan wrestlers at the time. That would have been amazing. Who knows how that would have looked, but ultimately it's not something that ever really happened, unfortunately. But we did get this match. So, like I said, on paper, they really tried to sell it as, you know, ECW versus All Japan, this dream tag team match, you know, when worlds are colliding. And that's kind of how the match is ultimately worked. Very early on, we get two opening sequences. So we get one with Furnas and Van Dam, where Furnas kind of dominates and out-wrestles Van Dam and, you know, shoulder blocks him to the floor and whatnot. And then the match shifts to an exchange between Kroffat and Sabu, where Sabu, you know, immediately takes this match ECW style, whereas, you know, before it was kind of that clean, you know, we'll say All Japan style wrestling. Sabu throws Kroffat to the floor, he bails into the crowd, and we get a big triple jump plancha into the crowd. This match, like I said, is really just a series of moves. There is some story that kind of goes throughout. The main story here is Sabu and Van Dam not really gelling as a tag team and not getting along, right? So they're coming out of their feud that was based around respect and Van Dam not respecting Sabu. So we got, you know, them jaw-jacking at each other, getting in each other's ways a little bit. You know, Sabu kind of trying for a tag and Van Dam making no effort to stick his hand out for the tag. We get a spot where, you know, Sabu kind of teases the handshake, and it looks like Van Dam will maybe grab it, and Sabu just Irish whips Van Dam into a somersault dive to the floor onto Furnas and Kroffat. Sabu is really great in this match. He hits some crazy stuff. He does basically his triple jump, which I've talked about, right? The jump off the chair, springboard off the ropes into something else that he would do for so many of his various moves. So he does a triple jump into a turnaround elbow drop. So while he's, standing on the top rope, he does a complete turnaround, keeping his balance, which is pretty miraculous, and hits an elbow drop off of it. He actually hits that twice in this match. Dan Kroffat does the cattle mutilation in this match. So again, a move that you really associate with Daniel Bryan. But, here we are in 1996, Dan Kroffat busting that thing out. Eventually, we get somewhat of a heat sequence in this match on Sabu, so it does have a little bit of a structure to it at points, where the Can-Ams just take him out with various suplexes, and that leads to an RVD hot tag, so he finally, takes the tag. They go on a little bit of an offensive run, and there's kind of a cool spot here where I don't know if this is actually what happened or if it was just a really good Joey Styles cover job, but Sabu goes for a triple jump, out to one of the Can-Ams that's lying across the table on the floor, and Sabu slips and crotches himself. Joey Styles, though, says that off camera, Van Dam hit the ropes, causing Sabu to trip. So again, was it just a Sabu botch that was really, cleverly covered, or was that the intentional move and the camera just missed Van Dam hitting the ropes? I don't know. But anyways, when that happens, Van Dam very quickly climbs up to the top and puts one of the Can-Ams, I think it was Furnas that was on the table, puts him through a table with a somersault dive to the floor, basically stealing Sabu's thunder, right? Sabu's the big table spot guy, but Van Dam slips in and takes that away from him. We get just a final, 10-ish minutes of this match where there's no tags whatsoever. It's basically a tornado-style tag team match. All four guys are constantly in the ring, and it's just big move after big move with pins getting broken up, guys kicking out at 2 galore. So what you would see, in a lot of tag matches nowadays where things kind of break down and you get those near-fall fests, but they didn't even try to bother with having, 2 in, 2 out. And we got just big stuff here. Doug Furnas hits just a huge German suplex on Van Dam where he does a complete flip bump off of it. Kroffat hits a Tiger Driver, a very all-Japan move. Sabu hits the triple jump moonsault. Doug Furnas, who's, again, a big, really strong guy, busts out a beautiful Hurricane Rana in this, obviously, showing shades of Scott Steiner, in this regard, but it was a great looking Rana. We get a big spot where Dan Kroffat hits almost like a sleeper kind of suplex variant on Sabu off the top rope. And Joey Styles goes ballistic on commentary for this, basically calling it a Tazplex, because in ECW world, every suplex is a Tazplex. But he calls it, a modified Tazplex, and he talks about, how the Can-Ams, much like in the Sabu RVD feud that we had talked about, that the Can-Ams must have been tipped off by Taz and Bill Alfonso to go after Sabu's neck, and Taz must have shown Kroffat, this Tazplex, and perhaps Rob Van Dam was in on it all, because we'd previously seen him leave with Sabu and Taz, where, Taz had shared the secret of Sabu's bad neck that was being, covered up. So they try to bleed in all of this story stuff to the match. Really, I think it was just Dan Kroffat doing a good move, but, Joey Styles really, really trying to drive that story home. We get a doomsday device on Sabu. Kroffat gets like we call it like Sabuing the chair, right? When Sabu just throws a chair at somebody's head, he does that. The chair hits Kroffat right in the nose. How that didn't break that man's nose, I have no idea. It was brutal. At one point, Kroffat gets RVD in a leg lock, and Sabu just hits an Arabian face buster on him while they're sitting in the leg lock. Van Dam hits a split leg moonsault with a chair. He hits a very early version of the 5-star frog splash. Not quite 5-star yet, maybe like a 3.5-star frog splash. But he hits a frog splash on Furnas. And as this match is coming to a close, again, in the general match, this would maybe bug me a little bit because they repeat some of their spots. So Furnas hits another, big German suplex, and Kroffat hits that same Tazplex off the top again. But I kind of find it charming, and I kind of find it as working in this match because these guys are out of ideas, right? So it's, you know, the Can-Ams have hit everything in their arsenal. It should have worked. They should have beaten RVD and Van Dam. So they're going back to what brought them to the dance and the moves that were successful. But we get the time limit, a 30-minute time limit expiring here, and the match ends in a draw. So again, showing that, you know, Kroffat and Furnas really feel like they should have had this match won and didn't know what to do. And that leads into the post-match as well. Naturally, it's an ECW crowd. There's a time limit draw, so we get the 5 more minutes chant from the crowd. Van Dam and Sabu, you know, they seem like they're willing to continue. And Furnas and Kroffat end up bailing and, you know, flipping everybody off, just being the outsider heels, and also again showing that they didn't know what they could do at that point to beat Van Dam and Sabu. So even though it ended in a draw, it kind of feels like a little bit of a victory for Rob Van Dam and Sabu. And then we get a moment post-match where Van Dam and Sabu finally shake hands, showing that they maybe earned each other's respect through this tag team contest, and they might be able to make something of the team, which they would end up doing as they would have a run as the ECW World Tag Team Champions in the following year. Van Dam and Sabu, great opponents against each other in '96, maybe not so much later in their careers. They're often associated as a tag team, but between you and I, was never a huge fan of that tag team. I feel like a lot of their matches are, you know, somewhat similarly to this one, just kind of big disjointed messes. You know, the matches with the Eliminators were all over the place. I did like the one at Crossing the Line '97, but you know, aside from that, the tables and ladders and everything that were, you know, famous at the time, I really don't find hold up that much. The match with Hayabusa and Shinzaki at Heatwave the '98, which at the time a lot of people loved. It was that dream match, much like this was when ECW was working on their relationship with FMW. I find that match doesn't hold up. There's stuff with the Dudleys, there's stuff with the Eliminators. None of those matches really work too much for me. But for whatever reason, this one does. I think it's cool. You know, it has that kind of cross-promotional feel. It's got a nice hot crowd. It's a 30-minute draw on TV where the commercial breaks don't ruin it, because again, as ECW, it's edited. It's a taped show, so they show pretty much the entire match. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. You get that subtle story, and overall, it just works for me. It might not work for you as much as it worked for me, but it's definitely, if you've never seen it, it's worth checking out. I feel like this is another one of those little hidden gem under the radar ECW matches. These guys would end up getting a rematch in at the High Incident event later in '96, right before the Can-Ams would move to the WWF. It wasn't anywhere near as good as this one. It only aired on the High Incident commercial tape in clipped formatting, which shows that, you know, what was clipped out really couldn't have been too good if we'd never got to see that complete match. But this 30-minute draw is well worth watching. The Can-Ams would eventually come back to ECW in 1997 as part of the WWF invasion, but ultimately they wouldn't play a very big role in that, and both Doug Furnas and Dan Kroffat, for, you know, better or worse, would both kind of fizzle out after that time, and we wouldn't hear too much from either again. Like I said, kind of, even though they are heralded for, you know, some of their All Japan matches, they really don't, you know, aren't two guys that you hear too much about nowadays in 2021. But this match is a great example of what they could do. You can find this match on the WWE Network. You might be able to find it on Peacock. All ECW is available online if you look hard enough. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you don't miss any of these videos. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50, and please join me again tomorrow as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.